Truth on the Tracks you can catch every Monday night and Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on UCY.TV.
Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're listening to us from here on this beautiful planet we call Earth. This is Michael Cross here with another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions, where we try to dig just a little bit deeper than the mainstream media when it comes to the analysis of society, psychology, and issues affecting our daily lives. Now, before I get started, I encourage people to check out my website at michaelcross.net, or hey, follow me on Twitter at psychomike777. Now, that little plug done, I would like to share a quote with you that I saw in the UK Daily Mail today. And then I'm just going to ask you, who do you think it's from? And the quote is, "It's far easier than you think to manipulate a nation of naive, self-absorbed sheep who crave instant gratification." Now, a hint, it's not Sigmund Freud, and it's not his nephew, Edward Bernays, although it easily could be. Edward Bernays often said that people were stupid, and that's why they were easy to manipulate. He didn't mean that necessarily on a individual level, I don't think. You know, like if you're a plumber, you know plumbing pretty good. If you're an electrician, if you're a teacher of mathematics, if you're, any number of professions, you may know your profession really, really well. But then again, if we hold this certain Western ideal that we need an educated population in order to have a democratic nation, John F. Kennedy did say the weakest link in the chain of democracy is its least informed member or link. So ultimately, I think to a certain degree this individual may be correct. And I'll go back to that in just a moment. But first I want to read, first of all, let you know who this is. You should look it up. It's in the UK Mail, Daily Mail online, and it was printed the 12th of May, 2016. And essentially it is an article about a new book called The Confessions of Congressman X. Yes, The Confessions of Congressman X. Now, this is reported to be a Democratic congressman who has basically spilled the beans. Okay? He's letting people know how Congress people really work, how they see the population as a whole, and he seems to be somewhat disillusioned by the process. So maybe this is why he decided to create this book. But I'm going to read something here for you. There's a whole bunch of quotes, and I would encourage people to go to the article and see what it's all about. And he said this: voters claim they want substance and detailed position papers, but what they really crave are cutesy cat videos, celebrity gossip, top 10 list, reality shows, tabloid tripe, and the next effing Twitter message. And it goes on, the congressman gripes in the book, "I worry about our country's future when critical issues take a backseat to the inane utterings of illiterate athletes and celebrity twits." And then he goes on to say that most of their time spent on fundraising, that often they never even read a bill before they vote on it, or they'll vote a certain way so they can later have the opportunity to vote a different way. But ultimately, it's a game. Now, what I have said on many broadcasts is that there is a relationship between psychopathic traits and successful politicians. And by successful, I mean basically the ones who win. Okay? You could be a politician. You could run for Congress, or you could run for state legislature, year after year after year and lose. And you'd be a politician. I mean, you're someone that's part of the process, but you wouldn't exactly be a successful politician. Now, would you? Okay? Because in politics, winning is what counts. Okay? Nothing else in politics counts. Winning is everything. So a successful politician is one who attains his or her political objectives. And in the next installment of my book series, the Freedom from Conscience book series, when number 5 goes out, it's going to be dealing with this, where our psychopathic heroine winds up being elected to Congress, and how that changes things in her life, and observations that she makes of her colleagues and some of the really dangerous stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Now, the thing is this. I contend that a society that has spiraled to this situation, because I cannot necessarily disagree with him. I can't disagree with a congressman. When I saw a video recently, really, really good analysis of from the artist / journalist Abby Martin, in which she's talking about Hillary Clinton and Hillary Clinton's basically her issues on war and everything. And this is something I think everyone should see, but I looked on YouTube. It had, like, at the time I saw it, it was not even 30,000 views. Very critical information given in that video. Less than 30,000 views. If I look up someone, you know what I mean when it comes to the crazy cat videos and stuff like that, you could, or, oh, my poodle got diarrhea, or something like that, and all of a sudden it's got like 2, 3, 4 million views. I've seen some really idiotic videos with 20 million views, and you're thinking, my gosh, is this where we're going? Is this what civilization's all about? Is this the reason why we don't communicate with other planets? Because at some point these other planets get to this stage, and then it just can become absorbed in trivia and fluff, and they just kind of cease to expand more. I don't know, but the thing is, this is fertile ground for psychopaths, okay, and people with psychopathic traits. And of course, as I said before, I have dealt a lot with politicians and politics and how psychopaths are actually almost bred for the political arena. Now, again, I won't say that all of our politicians are psychopathic, but I think that if you were to go in and you were to give the psychopathic checklist to, I don't know, pass it around during the State of the Union address when you have the Congress and the Senate and the President and a bunch of the advisors and stuff, you'd find that that they would score on a whole much higher than the average population. Okay, I think they would at least the average. My opinion on this, I can't diagnose it, all of them as a whole, is that you'd probably get an average range in the what some people call secondary psychopaths, other people would call borderline psychopaths. People that score not high enough to actually qualify as maybe being psychopathic if they went in and a psychologist actually administered all of the battery of tests that are necessary for a diagnosis, but they would reach far higher than average. So, if we say 30 is the cutoff point in the United States for someone being considered an actual diagnosable psychopath, perhaps, lower in some countries, then I would suspect that you would get between 15 and 25, which ironically is also where most criminals score. That's the criminality score. People that score like 5, 4, 6, those are scores that are pretty normal, pretty average. Look it up if you wish. Look up one of those tests. But anyway, let's just say we have people that are psychopathic, and many people have said that psychopaths are like lone wolves. And a lone wolf, of course, is a predator. Okay? And some people will get this image of the wolf in sheep's clothing. That old metaphor of the wolf that gets away with infiltrating the sheep and ultimately devouring them because the other sheep see another sheep. They don't see a wolf under those clothes. I would say a society that has gotten to our point right now is simple to manipulate. I mean, Edward Bernays probably would have had a much harder time manipulating the taste and getting people to buy things in the populations in the 1920s when he started out as he would if he were suddenly brought back young and alive today and put into a marketing firm. The more education a person has, of course, the more they feel like, oh, that's not me. It's those people that live in backwards jungles that can be manipulated so easily. However, I would say that the arrogance of believing that you are in some way superior feeds into a somewhat of a false narcissist worldview. And what I mean by false is not a true narcissist, but someone that still shows a lot of the traits. And that makes you far more manipulable. Okay? People can pull your strings. They can tell you how wonderful you are as long as you buy this, or how special you are as long as you vote for this candidate. You see what I mean? It's far easier for politicians to be able to get up and convince a population that they need to adopt a certain policy, be a certain way, vote a certain way, support certain measures, if the population is no longer capable of critical thinking. If and you can use a whole bunch of different methods to do it. My gosh, a person that has good critical thinking skills. And what I mean by critical thinking is not cynicism. But critical thinking is when you can take opposing views, match them, compare them, and come up with what you feel is the best policy or viewpoint. Okay? It's not just sitting there going, oh, I just don't believe anyone, the world sucks, and, I just want to, whatever, like the robot in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It doesn't have to be that way. But being able to critically analyze means that you can stand up for your beliefs, but you also understand other people's beliefs. You understand different policy options, and you can choose, based on your values, which one is most appropriate to undertake. And I think this is a skill that's really being lost in the United States and maybe even in Western Europe because it's not being emphasized in the culture. We live in a culture that's really glitzy. It catches your attention. It's designed in such a way that everything is like a soundbite now. Just those few seconds that you know what will be on the news when you say it, and how you can make things bigger than life and sell it to the audience and tell them how much you really care for them. A psychopath is not just someone who can seduce a woman or a man or either one in a dating situation without really caring about that person. But it also can mean someone who gets up in front of an audience and can do the same exact thing. It reminds me of Edward Bernays. I'm not saying he was a psychopath, but my understanding is, again, father of advertising. He wasn't so good one-on-one, but for groups, he could make them move in whatever direction he wanted them to. Now, politicians are good at that. Okay? Politicians are very, very astute at that, the ones who are successful. And, you can look at certain traits. You can look at the traits that seem to be associated with their being able to be successful at these things. First of all, I would say this. A psychopath does not feel guilt. Okay? They feel, again, I'm going to say this over and over again. A psychopath can feel disappointment over losing an election. A psychopath can feel disappointment over being dumped by their boyfriend or girlfriend. A psychopath could feel bad about failing a test, but they're not going to feel guilty. Okay? Everything is more of a cost-benefit, rational, intellectual way of looking at things. So, again, I said this in my previous show dealing with psychopaths and religion. A psychopath can very much believe the 10 Commandments to be true. The psychopath can actually wind up breaking those commandments. But ultimately, the difference between breaking one of those commandments, if you're a religious psychopath and if you're a religious non-psychopath, is the religious non-psychopath may feel a lot of guilt. And sometimes that guilt can be very overwhelming. I just recently read an article, a study that was done that said that if people that are religious start looking at pornography, often they start questioning their religion. And the article pointed out that could be based on the idea that they feel guilty. And so the guilt complex has been built up so much in many conservative religions that the only way to deal with it is drop the religion. I mean, if guilt's hitting you, you either have to stop what you're doing or stop the religion. And so, that's the way a lot of people are. And psychopaths could look at pornography and just say, well, I'm still loyal to my wife or husband. I don't do these kinds of things. And, they're getting paid for it. And still feel very much like I'm not the one breaking the rule. And they may see God as this ultimate rule giver, and therefore they're worried about their position in the next life. But it's not like this, oh, I feel so bad, I feel so sorrowful, how could I have disappointed God so much and disappointed my parents and that sort of thing. Psychopaths don't care, okay? They can't. Their minds are wired differently. So therefore they don't feel guilt in the way that an average person would and, feel this like wanting to beat their head against the wall or something like that because they've disappointed themselves or disappointed God. Ironically, that means actually the psychopath might stay involved in the religion, whereas the highly empathetic person, or a person that can feel guilt very easily, drops away. Especially, I guess, when you read some of those things in the Old Testament about the wars and stuff like that. Psychopaths going, okay, must have been a reason. Whereas another person may be just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know my loving God, would do such a thing, and then they drop out of their religion. Okay, now, the politicians don't feel the guilt, but they can use guilt. They can use guilt on their supporters. They can use it in the background. They can try making an issue seem like, things have been done here that are wrong, and convey or project that guilt onto a group of people who had nothing to do with it. Okay, that's one of those ironies that weaponized guilt is used by politicians and political groups all the time. Well, true, religion uses, guilt too. Okay, the whole original sin thing. I mean, even though it's not really a biblical doctrine, I mean, you could read the Bible over and over and over and over and over again and not really come up with original sin. But, that's been used, okay? You're guilty for just being here, so therefore you have to atone by, going in and confessing to a priest or something like that. The thing is that a psychopath would look at that and go, there's nothing there, and therefore stay with their religion. But when it comes to politics, that's very important. You may not feel the guilt personally, but you can get up there and you can be someone who's a multi-millionaire and then talk about how selfish the middle class is for not supporting certain tax measures. Okay? You can, and not feel at all distressed in some way that you're really not being completely honest with those people. Okay? But if you build the guilt up where the taxpayer who's basically just getting by is like, oh my gosh, maybe I need to support this or that policy. That's a very, very powerful psychopathic tool. Okay? I mean, you're immune to it. It's like you're inoculated against it. You don't feel the guilt, but the people that are around you can make them feel guilty for not supporting your policy. Okay. Another aspect to how psychopaths can use modern society today is technology. Wow, look at how you can use technology to get a message across. And whereas a lot of people have a hard time dealing with public speaking, for instance, psychopaths, most of them at least, have a very high level of narcissistic demand in them. They want to be fulfilled. And often that is through stroking the persona that they convey to the public. And so, they don't care if they tweet something out that's really obnoxious and suddenly they're getting attacked for it. Oh, that was unfair. That was really mean. And then they look and see that it's been retweeted 100,000 times and people seem to really like it out in the public. Okay? It doesn't matter to them. But yet you need to have that. A politician can't make it if they're just like worried about, how everyone's perceiving them all the time. Okay? They have to kind of have this attitude that they have this, again, a psychopathic trait, this grandiose sense of power and destiny. And that it has to be accomplished. Okay? And if you have a population that's been dumbed down, where you can manipulate them using any number of things, whether it be left-wing fairness type of ideology or right-wing morality and so forth, rhetoric, you don't care if you're a politician. That's why a lot of times politicians can switch really critical core value positions. Okay? They can go from being anti-war to pro-war, depending on who's in charge. Okay? They can be the kind of person who says, we cannot be interfering in other countries till all of a sudden they're in charge and they're saying, let's bomb the heck out of that country until they switch leaders. Okay? That's psychopathic. All right, and in fairness, there are those who feel that way anyway that aren't psychopaths, but it just comes more naturally to the psychopath. Other ways that it's easy to manipulate is that if people don't have a connection to their past, meaning history, then they have no sense of who they are, why they're here, what got them here, and therefore where they're going. I saw one of these viral videos on Facebook where someone was asking people about World War II. Now, World War II is still very much a central part of our modern life, even though it took place 70 years ago? Because that was the war that got rid of the what was left of the colonial powers. World War I knocked out about 4 major empires. Let me see if it was 4. I think it was. Austro-Hungarian, Russian, Ottoman. Okay, 3. Okay, three major empires destroyed by World War I. By the time you get to World War II, that took out some major colonial powers. I mean, they still existed, but France and England lost a lot of their possessions around the world. So everything started becoming more of a world system. That's where we got the World Bank, IMF, GATT, which eventually turned into WTO. And the sense that we should be writing all of these treaties and trying to come up with new and better ways to cooperate and become interdependent, and this gave birth to globalism in many different manners, especially economic. And then you can look at such things as how the Cold War, basically sucked the whatever surplus production existed in the United States and Russia at that time in the USSR, basically bled those societies, and still much of the debt that the West has is because of military spending during that time, which of course ran on because once those companies, corporations, and interests found this is a great way to make money. When communism fell, everyone thought, oh, now we get to save money. Forget it. That's when NATO went ballistic and started expanding. That's when we started getting more and more demands for bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger military budgets and more intervention and so forth. You see, the thing is, if people know the history of what's going on, they are far less manipulatable. The people that you see in these videos where they don't even know who Hitler was, okay? I'm serious. That's what the video said. People didn't know who Hitler was. They didn't know the name, what countries were fighting, and that sort of thing. This is a very easy population to manipulate. This is a population that if you turn out a movie like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer, you probably have a significant number of the population that actually believes that Lincoln killed vampires. Okay. And, the thing is, many people are living in these little entertainment worlds. And that's what counts. And when election time comes along, they're not the people that study the issues and want to know, well, how does he stand on this and she stand on that and so on and so forth. Instead, they're looking for little things. Some of them may look at single policy issues. Maybe the person owns a gun and they don't want to lose that right to protect themselves. So therefore, they find out, they get some sort of advertisement saying, did you know Hillary wants to take your guns away or something like that. And they'll just accept that and then vote for Trump. Or Donald Trump wants to build a 3,000-foot wall between the United States and all other countries and created like this, concentration camp thing. And people are like, oh, wow, Donald Trump wants to do that, and without studying what he's actually said. It's better to have a population of people that at least investigate the issues and not rely on entertainment to, create the reality for them. Now, you go into other areas where it's easy for the psychopath. The psychopath can come across cool, calm, collected, whereas the other person might be all sweaty and nervous in front of the cameras. Well, maybe the person that's sweaty and nervous in front of the cameras is sweaty and nervous because they really are trying, they really do have this sense of trying to help people, and therefore they're a little self-conscious about how they are they presenting themselves. Whereas a psychopath, they're just like, hey, there's my loving audience. And they get up there and go for it. See, the psychopath has fearless dominance, which is a very, very good trait to have when it comes to success in business, when it comes to success in law, when it comes to success in financial markets, and when it comes to success in politics. So with that fearless dominance, humans are programmed instinctively to want to follow people like that, because we want a leader who says we can do it versus a leader who would get up and say, well, there's about a 50% chance we'll die doing this, but we'll give it our all. Okay, no one's going to follow that guy into battle. All right? We have been bred to follow the people who have confidence, who present a sense of destiny to the population. And it may be that politician's view of what that destiny should be. But with modern technology and mass communications nowadays, we don't not even mention the power of the federal government. It's possible to then create this desired destiny amongst a population that's highly, analytical and knows the past and knows what's going on politically. It's a little harder to convince them. But people that think they know all of these things and instead live in this fantasy world the congressman I mentioned before is talking about, TV and social media, it's going to be much easier to manipulate them and show more of that dominance. And that's what people will remember. And then, of course, a lot of times psychopathy feeds upon other psychopathy. So sometimes the psychopath will not admire someone who is perceived as weak. They may admire other people who have also had this fearless dominance. And so they often work in conjunction with each other to build each other up, even though that may not be for the best of the people. And I think that if we take a look at the war issues, think about the irony here. You just think about the irony. Military people are taken from, it's usually the lower middle class, okay? Not the super poor, not the elite, but, kind of the people whose parents go to work every day. They have a nice, modest home in the suburbs, car, that sort of thing. And they have to follow whatever they're told to do. And, even though they may disagree with it, they are still instructed to do it. And for them to get those instructions, you have to convince a population that for some reason, whether it's out of fear, oh no, they're going to get us if we don't, get rid of our freedoms, or if we don't go attack this country here. The Twin Towers come down, then we got to go attack Iraq. Well, wait a minute. Let's ask, were there any Iraqis involved in 9/11? No, there weren't. In fact, Saddam Hussein was very opposed to those kinds of elements within the Middle East that were behind this sort of thing. But if you can convince people, okay, or if you can get up in front of the people and kind of make it sound like NATO's making you go and, take out Libya, and then later after people say, hey, wait a minute, that may have been a huge mistake. And then you can say, well, I think it was those Europeans that kind of forced our hands into having to go in there and doing it. See, shirking the responsibility, pushing it onto someone. And then the media, journalists is one of the top 10 occupations that attract psychopaths. I assume, people that have high psychopathic traits. So the media comes along and says, says nothing. Or if they write an article, it's written in such a way that's more confusing. It doesn't get to the point. It doesn't analyze. I've had people from other countries tell me that I look at, very prestigious corporate newspapers, and I see these articles, and it's like, there's no analysis. It's just, just some kind of randomly thrown in information, but there's no analysis. It's just kind of incomplete. It's like reading an anatomy book before you go in for a surgery. Well, you don't know how that body really works. You just know where the parts are. And that's the way modern journalism seems to work now. And of course, if that's the way it's going to work, then that is what we're going to get. We're going to get psychopaths who's going to come along and say, oh, we need to go do this. And people that before were, in their tie-dye t-shirts and, holding peace signs, suddenly are like, yeah, let's go use our military might to change things over there, even though they don't even know where over there is. So ultimately, I think that what this congressman is saying about a manipulable population that doesn't know how the process really works, but yet they go and vote, and then they just kind of, many of them just shut off until the next election comes by, and then, people spend, millions and millions, billions of dollars now on advertising, because advertising's to sway the people that don't know anything about the process. Okay, the advertising is not going to change a person from a Trump supporter to a Hillary supporter, or a Hillary supporter to a Trump supporter, those that really know their candidates. It's designed to change the person who's just kind of like, well, there's an election coming up, and I've heard a few things from this person here and this one here, and then this one cute commercial comes on. It's like, wow, yeah, I think I'm going to vote for her, or something like that. So ultimately, if our society continues this spiral to some sort of kind of idiocracy sort of model, I don't know how long democracy as we know it, and by democracy I mean representative government, where we have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, I don't know how long that can actually last, because pretty soon you're persuading people, oh, we need to have this law because if we don't ban this, then it is going to result in someone feeling bad or something. Well, the problem is that if you start chopping away at speech, press, I'd say even gun rights, but religion, pretty soon you won't have that. So ultimately, we need to try to turn this around. This congressman's warnings should be spread. People should learn what's going on, where we're at, what our public officials think of us, and try to make sure that with this modern technology, coupled with the rights that were guaranteed in our various, wherever when we listen, constitutions and so forth, that we make sure that this can be turned around and doesn't lead to a further decline, so that maybe 1,000 years from now, people are, our society becomes just a footnote, like the decline of the Roman Empire, or the decline of Greece, or the decline of the Egyptians, and it's not the decline of the West or the decline of America. Okay? Very important. We're at a crossroads. That crossroads, is going to depend on, the direction that we choose, what we value, and what we strive for and encourage in our homes, in our churches, synagogues, communities, and nation as a whole. What I'd like to discuss this remaining 20 minutes is, what else? The election. And a lot of the developments that seem to be taking place with the Republican Party. Okay? Now, the Democrats, they're still fighting it out. And who knows how that's going to turn out. You might wind up with Bernie getting there. Or if Hillary gets indicted, the party might throw someone else in. Or they might get behind Bernie. Who knows? But with the Republicans, I think it's a little bit easier to kind of determine some of the stuff taking place. I mean, come on. We know that Donald Trump is going to have the votes needed for the nomination. Okay? Now, whether you like Donald Trump or you don't like Donald Trump, your choice is going to be probably Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. And as I said in the first half, I would really encourage people to type in, I don't have the name of the video right now, but there's a couple. Type in Abby Martin / Hillary Clinton / war. I think that'll take you to some really, really good commentary from Abby Martin on this. Stuff that should go viral and unfortunately doesn't. And just like I said earlier, the American public has been conditioned to spend their time on the internet. Well, what? They spend their time with trivia and reality shows on TV, or kitty cat videos, or porn, or gaming, or any of these kinds of things. And it's really sad that we could wind up, if 50 years ago people would have said you would have had a device that you could put in your pocket or carry around that would give you access to every library on earth, practically, and a wealth of books that there's no way you could possibly read them all. and access to news publications from around the world. If you're old enough, think back to when you used to go to your public library, and they might have some couple of newspapers there. If maybe you were taking German class, you could practice your German. They might have Der Spiegel or something like that. But remember what it was like. There were maybe 2 or 3 or 4 foreign publications there. And the thing is that now we have the internet. Okay, we have the internet. We can go on there, find all the information you could ever possibly want. And what do people look up? Kitty cat videos. Okay, I mean that is, and other things like that. And obviously, a lot of times people just get home and they're tired and they want something that's like a distraction. Okay, something just that doesn't require any mental effort. But the thing is that we really need to look at the fact that we need to examine these issues. I mean, I remember back in the 1980s when everyone was all worried about nuclear war and everything, but I didn't see Ronald Reagan or Mikhail Gorbachev or Margaret Thatcher or was it Helmut Kohl in Germany or any of these leaders. I didn't see them actually, hinting at using nuclear weapons. And now it seems like all the countries that have nuclear weapons make comments about nuclear weapons. And we got countries now in the Middle East that want nuclear weapons. Well, in a way, who could blame them when they're surrounded by a whole bunch of other countries that are wanting nuclear weapons or already have them? The thing is that we have some major issues out there. We've got war. We've got the economy in which the middle class is dying, okay? The middle class is dying, all right? It's not dead yet. But if you compare to what it used to be just 20 or 30 years ago, okay, 20 or 30 years ago, the middle class was so much more vibrant. It was growing, and now it's contracting rapidly. And I don't think the solution is this neoconservatism too, but also classical liberal idea that we just kind of wait and let it work out on its own. Okay, a lot of the kind of conservatives that do not like Donald Trump are the ones who say, if you just let it alone, let it go, things will work themselves out. Okay, well, yeah, I guess the same could be true for vaccination. When I read the book Descent of Man by Charles Darwin, he was noting that maybe vaccination was reducing the overall health of the population because diseases would kind of weed out people with problems, weaker people. So what if we applied the economics that we see being thrown out there by a lot of the people who do not like Trump, that just say, just leave it alone, things will work out for the best. Well, apply that to medical technology. Sure, we leave it alone for 100 years, and, later we wind up with a stronger population because the weaker ones have died out. But is that what we want as a human thing? Would that be any indication of our humanity? Or how is it any indication of your humanity when you basically tell workers, yeah, there's other jobs? Or, hey, go train for computer programming or something like that. Or try doing this other thing. The thing is, that's being told to you by politicians who do not have any skills beyond what they have been trained to do anyway, mostly law. Then politics. If suddenly you didn't need lawyers and PR people, they'd be out there. Oh my gosh, they'd be clamoring for there to be some sort of policies to get the country going again. Now, I'm not saying, let's just go ahead and go for a communist system or anything like that. But essentially, I'm just wondering, how much does it cost to pay welfare? As opposed to how much extra would it cost if you did have some sort of infrastructure project? Okay, FDR was not a communist. Some people say he was a communist, and he really wasn't. My dad was young during that time period, and he did say, I mean, at least you knew you were good. You know, when you got money from the government, they gave you a job to do. And of course, they had some really massive, very worthwhile projects that took place, whether that was building dams that we still use for hydroelectricity, bridges, which we still use, even though they're starting to deteriorate, or other infrastructure projects. And the only people I hear talking like that is Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. Oh, you hear some, lip service given by people like Hillary, but I don't see any kind of solution offered. Okay, it's still the same old, I'll tell you what you want to hear, and then you'll vote for me. I saw a funny meme out there. It was like a fake Ben & Jerry's ad, and the flavor was the Hillary flavor, and it's whatever flavor you want it to be. I mean, come on. And the thing is, if the Republicans actually want to win this election and not be sitting there going, oh, look at all the mistakes we made, which reminds me, the Republican Party to a large degree is like the best friend guy in a movie, that never gets the girl. Okay. And when they do sometimes get the girl, they lose her. Okay. They don't know how to hold on. And so, Republicans win Congress, and then they just kind of flub it up and lose Congress, and then people get tired of the Democrats, so they throw them out, and then the Republicans get back in. People are going to be kind of sick of doing this, though. A lot of people I've talked to have said, I voted for the Republicans this time for Congress, and look what's happened. They haven't done anything. They've spent more time attacking Trump than they've spent time attacking Obama, which is really ironic. And, whether you like Trump or not, if you're a Republican, I'm just telling you, if you don't get out there and get him elected, you're not going to have 4 years of Hillary. You're going to have 8 years of Hillary. Okay? You have 8 years. You're going to have a Supreme Court that is going to be totally dominated by the Democratic Party. Because Obama, there was a lot of conservative appointments under George Bush. But a lot of them were not really conservative. They were kind of your country club Republican sort of judges. And then you had 8 years of Obama, in which he's had some Supreme Court appointments, and he's also had federal court appointments, a lot of them. Then what you're looking at is with Hillary, that's 4 years. That's at least a couple of Supreme Court appointments, probably replacing, some that are actually somewhat conservative on the court. And of course, 4 years, she'll get in for another 4 years. That's just the way people are, they're like, okay, give her time to finish out. We're used to her. It's very rare actually for presidents not to win re-election if they really try, historically. But the thing is that there's a lot of disarray out there right now. You got Mitt Romney out there who doesn't seem to understand that the election's pretty much over. He knew he could have. I predict if Mitt Romney had jumped into the race at the very beginning, he had the supporters, he had the network. I think he would right now be the nominee. Without a doubt, he would be the nominee. Okay? He didn't jump in. So really, for him to be complaining right now, and for him to be making whatever message he's trying to get out there to the public, seems to me to be a little bit too much, too late. And now people are like, I know a lot of people who, at least I see in social media, people who are like, I voted for Mitt Romney in 2008 when he ran against John McCain. Oh, there's a guy for you. And then he ran, 2012, they voted for him for the president, and they supported him. He maybe even give him money to the campaign. But now they're like, oh my gosh, would he just go home and retire or do something? Just get him out of the political arena already. Okay? So, Mitt, you're probably not listening, but just, you got a great family, everything's good with you financially, maybe just kind of time to go enjoy that family. Okay. Now the thing is that there's still some people out there that are still mad about Cruz. Oh gosh, in social media, I still get these posts, showing pictures of Melania Trump when she was a model, long before she married Donald Trump. And they're like, oh my gosh, Cruz's wife would have been so much better and so forth. Well, you see, I'm not going to attack Cruz or his wife because the election's pretty much over. What difference does it make? Isn't that quoting Hillary Clinton about Benghazi? The thing is that they're just continuing. It's not doing anyone any good to be continuously bashing. If you want to bash someone, go to some of the Bernie Sanders Facebook pages and social media pages and copy off some of forward some of the stuff so that you have it later that's being used on Hillary. I mean, there's some good stuff in there, especially in regards to war and things like that. That, if I had a choice between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, oh my gosh, I'd fill the back of my car up with Bernie Sanders stickers. Okay? No doubt in my mind whatsoever. Now, if it was a race between Lindsey Graham and Hillary Clinton, that would be a toughie, really. But Bernie, I'd vote for Bernie over Hillary any day of the week. But the thing is, if Hillary gets the nomination, there's going to be a huge push. And it's not just going to be from grassroots. It's not going to be just someone that was sitting there on Facebook and developing memes and sharing information, suddenly saying, you know what, okay, I don't want Donald Trump, so I'm going to vote for Hillary, and let's make sure this gets promoted. No, that's going to be a lot of big money behind that. There's going to be a huge amount of resources, I guarantee you, from PACs and stuff like that are going to be trying to woo those voters back that right now have a really sour taste in their mouth. I talked to someone today. He's so enthusiastic about Bernie. And he was like, I warned him early on that Hillary would pull no punches whatsoever. And he was like, oh, no, Bernie's going to win. And there was this faith he had. And now he's just kind of like, Trump all the way if Hillary gets a nomination. And he's not a naive person. This guy actually knows his stuff. Okay, he really studies politics. So the thing is that if you want to really, if you want Hillary elected, fine. Continue jumping on Trump, continue bringing stuff up, continue sowing doubts in people's minds about Trump. And if you're like in a leadership position, especially do that, because the more you create the doubt, the less likely people will say, you know what, maybe it's time to give Trump a little chance and see how he really is. And so ultimately right now, I'm not going to say it's the majority of Cruz's support, but I still see those really diehard Cruz people. I got, it was kind of funny. There was just some page where I just said some really mild stuff to, defending Trump. And this one lady unfriended me for it. She's got really angry and so forth. And, I've seen Cruz people doing that to other people too, which I thought only, kind of left-wing people did that to conservatives. But, if you're an evangelical that really was right there for Cruz, and, Cruz is I actually think Cruz is a good guy. I mean, he's got his heart in the right place, supports the Constitution, has a very, strict constructionist view of it, and supports a lot of individual rights. I think he's a great guy. But he's not going to get the nomination. Okay? So the thing is, it's time to kind of realize that don't be the guy that's kind of like, oh, I really hope Jane goes out with me to the prom, even though she's already accepted the invitation and her prom date is over on the porch giving her corsage to take her out. Okay? You're not going to get a date with her. So you might as well just forget that. Maybe Cruz will be chosen. Maybe Cruz will get chosen as a VP, and then you'll have him there. Or Trump could promise to put him in some sort of influential position in government. Maybe, I don't know, Attorney General or something like that. But at this particular moment, you should take a look at the reality, and the reality is that it's going to be Hillary or it's going to be Trump, barring any kind of really major disaster or something like that, or Hillary getting indicted. So take a look at how such things as the Supreme Court. Take a look at such things as military policy. Take a look at such things as economic policy. And then ask yourself, who do you think actually will at least try to change things? Okay? Maybe Trump is just, promising a lot of stuff he can't deliver. But I think he will at least try versus, if you want the status quo, if you like the foreign policy of Bill Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama, they're all the same. Okay? They're the same foreign policy. This foreign policy has been going on since 1992. If you like it, if you see the Middle East today and think, wow, things are so much better there than they were in 1992, by all means, vote for Hillary. That's your gal. But anyway, I really encourage people to take a look at where things are going to be at in, 6 months from now. And consider the fact that what's going on right now is what's going to determine it. Anyway, thanks a lot for tuning in, and hope you can come back next week for another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV Productions.